Previously on the Skip and Josh Sports Show.
I realized I'm in a bad relationship. I'm in a bad relationship with the team that I really love. The last couple of days, I've just been thinking a lot about, like, this team just continually disappoints me, and I keep going back to them, right?
Yeah.
It's just a bad situation for me. And as much as they disappointed me the other night, I'm going to be back in front of my TV again tonight, watching them and, hoping for the best.
The Skip and Josh Sports Show is on now.
Skippy,
What's happening?
how are you?
I'm good.
This is the first time I've spoken to you since the Canadians and Leafs got eliminated from the playoffs.
Actually, we literally have not spoken this whole week.
That's okay. So I think, just to put a bow on the season, we need to recap both the Habs and Leafs seasons.
I'm glad that we're actually a week has passed since the Leafs and Habs were both eliminated, to give us time to kind of think about it and ponder the end of the season, and kind of give us a chance to kind of talk a little bit more thoughtfully than some of the nonsense I've been hearing on the radio this week.
Of course.
Yeah.
What's really interesting is both teams got eliminated in the first round. Both teams got eliminated in 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, for the Leafs, this was a very successful season, and for the Canadians, it was very unsuccessful.
I listened to, like I told you last week, I kind of, after the Habs lost, I forget whatever game, I refused to listen to the local radio because I knew it was going to make me crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't listen to the radio the day after they got eliminated on purpose. I did listen to a little bit of Bergevin's press conference, but just a little bit. I didn't want to get too wrapped up in it. But I did listen to Toronto Sports Radio that day to see what they were saying about their team. And holy smokes, it's like you said, 2 teams had the exact same outcome, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in Montreal, it's like, you want to know what I heard here in Montreal?
Yeah.
Trade Galchenyuk, trade Price, fire the GM. Like literally every scenario under the sun. Sign Kovalchuk. How do we get Tavares? These are good questions, but I mean, trade Price, trade Galchenyuk, trade Gallagher, trade Pacioretty. That's what I heard.
Yeah, it's a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah,
It's a lot ridiculous.
Yeah, and then I tuned into Toronto, and it's like all sunshine, unicorns, and rainbows. Everybody's happy.
Who doesn't like unicorns?
I mean, everybody's excited, positive. It was positivity. It was amazing. I was actually, for the first time in my life, I was jealous of Toronto.
They were playing with house money because it didn't look like they were going to make the playoffs with about a month left in the season.
Yeah, you're right.
And so the fact that they made the playoffs was a bonus.
Yeah.
The fact that they won 2 games against the Capitals was a bonus. And the games, by the way,
They were
like
all
if
close.
you watched any of the Leafs, they were all close. They're all 1-goal games. 5 of them went into overtime. But what I was going to say is the Leafs series was so much more exciting than the Canadian series.
Oh, the Canadians was such defensive hockey, and
It was so boring.
because you know what, you in the Capitals and the Leafs, you have 2 of the rare teams in the league that are like we're going to outscore our opponent. That's how we're going to win.
Yeah.
It's not about just clamping down, trapping in the neutral zone, limiting the chances, this defensive hockey. It's 2 teams that are run and gun,
Yeah, and also, I mean, the Leafs defense isn't the strongest defense in the
No,
league.
so they have to play that way, right?
Right. So,
Anyway, so look, I'm happy for Toronto. I mean, I think like everyone said, the future is bright. But one thing that I did think about with the Leafs is next year, this soft type of little landing that they have, this period of forgiveness is going to be gone. So if they don't do well next year, then it's going to be right back to the way it always was in Toronto, where it's going to be fire this guy, trade this guy. What's wrong? The negativity is going to come back. This year they had, like you said, they're playing with house money. No one had anything to say, but that could change very, very quickly if they don't continue on the same path next year.
you're absolutely right. The expectations are going to be higher next year. There's no question. Now that they've made the playoffs, now there's the expectation that they have to make the playoffs every year for the next decade.
Right.
not making the playoffs is unacceptable. So the expectations are going to be higher.
Right.
Now, the truth of the matter is, it's not like they're going to get somebody amazing in the draft because they're not picking that high.
Right.
So
how are they going to improve their defense? And,
exactly.
And do they want to improve?
The team is going to be virtually the same. I mean, how many changes they're going to make? They're already talking about trading James Van Riemsdyk for a defenseman.
Okay, well, that's good.
Similar to the way the Oilers traded Taylor Hall for Adam Larson.
Yeah, I think that's a good move for them. And I don't know how committed are they to their goalie? Do you think he's the goalie they want, or they want to improve that position as well?
I mean, of course they'd like to improve it, but I don't know that they can improve it because he's, probably a top 15 goalie in the league, I think.
Yeah. But what about
better?
How do you compare him to like Ben Bishop?
Well, if you'd asked me that a year ago, I would have said Bishop is better.
Yeah, now.
But now Bishop didn't have the greatest season, and Anderson did have a good season. And keep in mind, Anderson is playing behind a defense that isn't the greatest.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
He doesn't have as much to work with as maybe Bishop did in Tampa.
I'm only bringing up Bishop because he's going to be a free agent, and he's the goalie that could move. The goalie that he's going to be a goalie for someone next year, right? He's not
right. It could be Vegas.
Could be Vegas, yeah. Well, we'll see.
See, that's the other thing. So now the pool is going to get thinner because any decent player that's out there that's available, Vegas might go and get that guy.
Yeah, but
whether it's a goalie, a defenseman, a forward, whatever.
It's going to be hard for them to get a goalie. Every team's allowed to protect one goalie, so every team's going to protect their starter.
Right.
It's just that if there's a good backup out there, that's kind of unheralded. Kind of like Cam Talbot was for the Rangers right now.
Right. And really the only team that's got two good goalies is Pittsburgh.
Yeah. And they were trying to get rid of Fleury last year. So I don't think it's weird to say because Fleury's backstopping them right now in the playoffs and he's looking great.
Yes.
But it's weird to say that. I think they would be happy if someone took Fleury's contract off their hands.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, my point was that it's going to be difficult for the Leafs or the Canadiens or any team to improve their roster because Vegas is going to get 30 players, right?
Yeah.
They're going to get at least one guy from each team in the league.
Yeah.
And then they can sign free agents as well.
Yeah.
So, and Vegas isn't going to compete for the cup or anything like that in their first year, but still the point is that there's going to be less players out there, less good quality players out there to choose from.
Yeah.
So well, I don't see how the Leafs or the Canadiens are going to be any better next season.
Well, I mean, there's free agency. And if you have prospects, I think most of the Leafs prospects are already there, right? So
they did call up a couple of guys in the last couple of weeks of the season who didn't play the full year.
Yeah. So how the Leafs can get better is by the guys on their team now getting better.
Correct.
And that is possible, right?
For sure, because they're all young.
Yeah, they're all young. For the Canadiens, it's another story. I think the Canadiens' chances of getting better is kind of remote because they're a team that's more veterans, and I don't see anybody really improving that much over what they've done this year. Is Pacioretty going to score more goals? No, he's probably going to do the same thing. Right. Is Galchenyuk going to get better? He could be also gone. I don't know. So Canadians are in a real precarious position because they don't really have anybody. There's no big prospect that they're like, oh, this guy's going to come up next year, like unless it's Sergachev, who's a defenseman. But they
have that other guy, Sherbak, is that his name?
Yeah, but he's years away, I think. I don't know.
He played 3 games this year, I think.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone in the AHL that they think is ready to step in and take a full-time role. So it's basically the same team that they have. Maybe they're going to try to get UFAs. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, the thing is, and making a trade, you're not going to improve your team making a trade because you'll fill one hole and create another one.
There's already a big rumor that came out on Sportsnet 2 days ago.
That said what?
I'd have to look up the exact rumor, but it's not really a rumor. So you know how this works, right? A guy writes an article saying this is what the Canadiens should do if I was GM. Right. And then the whole world goes, oh my God, did you hear the rumor about the Canadiens and the Islanders?
Right.
I mean, it's not a rumor.
Is it priced for Tavares?
No, it's Galchenyuk and like a prospect and 2 first-round draft picks for Tavares.
That's crazy.
So
Tavares is good, and I'd love to have him, but that's crazy.
Well, this is how rumors start, right? Because there is no rumor. It's so ridiculous.
I was thinking about the Canadiens, and it's interesting because if you let's take the 4 lines that they used in the last game of the season.
Yeah, okay.
And Danault is not a top line center. But
No.
if you move Danault to the second line,
Yeah, he really,
Okay.
in my mind, he's a third. But
well, let's put him on the second line.
yeah,
And then you take who was playing center on the second line. I forget.
mechanics.
Put him on the third line.
Yeah, then you're good. But you need a guy in the number one spot.
Exactly. So that's the point. If they just got a number one center,
Well, it was supposed
and
to have
moved
been
all their centers down a
Yeah.
rung,
It was supposed to have been Galchenyuk.
the team. Well, that's not going to happen. It's not going to be him. That
Yeah.
ship has sailed.
Yeah.
So if you move everyone down a rung, then the lineup's not that bad.
But how do you acquire this number one center without giving up someone off your roster?
There's only two ways. You have to either get lucky and have the first pick overall when Connor McDavid is available,
Right? Or Crosby or someone.
Crosby or Taves or
Taves.
Kane or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's not happening. And the only other way is to sign a free agent. But I don't even think there's any free agent out there this summer that's that good.
No, I don't think there is either. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I have a feeling the Canadians are just going to be in the same situation next year.
Yeah.
It's not going to
They're
be.
gonna-
They'll
They
be a
might win
good
their
team.
division.
They'll be a
They might
good
win
team.
their division
Yeah.
because the division isn't that strong.
And the thing is, they're never going to be bad as long as they have Carey Price and Nets.
Exactly. So they're in that terrible spot of mediocrity.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not bad enough that they're going to get the first overall pick or even a high pick.
Yeah.
They're not good enough that they're going to go to the finals.
Yeah.
They're right in the middle, which
Yeah.
is,
They're
when
gonna-
you're in the middle, you're stuck there forever.
They're gonna. That's where they've been like most of my adult life.
Yeah.
The
It's
last
a-
20
it's a
years or
shame.
so. Yeah. Well, I mean, it is what it is. But I mean, there's always this thing like, oh, the fans will not accept a rebuild. That's complete nonsense because you know what? In Toronto, the fans accepted the rebuild, and if the fans and those fans that didn't want to accept the rebuild, they're damn happy right now. I can guarantee you. Right?
I will. You're absolutely right, by the way. I will add this. The Carey Price is going to be a free agent after next season.
Yeah.
And so Marc Bergevin already said, yes, we're going to re-sign Carey Price. Hopefully he'll be with the Canadians for his entire career, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But I will say this. If you look at the last, I think, 10 years
Yeah.
at the teams that have won the Stanley Cup,
You don't need you need a
you
good
don't
goalie.
you don't need the best goalie in the league. It's not like when Martin Brodeur and Patrick Waugh were meeting in the finals every year.
I've given this a lot of thought. You're 100% right.
You need a good goalie, but you don't need the best goalie. And so most of the Canadians' money is going to be tied up in Carey Price because he's the best player on their team.
Yeah.
And they're foregoing acquiring, a John
Someone else
Tavares or a
because of
Steve
that.
Stamkos or a Connor McDavid. Not that any of these guys are available to be had. I'm just saying.
Yeah. But it goes to the makeup of the team also, right? The Canadians have a great goalie, so therefore the rest of the team kind of suffers. So they're in this kind of loop where they have no choice but to have a great goalie because they don't have a good team. Whereas, yeah, the Penguins won with Matt Murray and the Blackhawks won with Corey Crawford and Antti Niemi, right?
Right.
And like there's other examples, right?
Yeah,
but
the Kings won with Jonathan Quick.
Quick is good, but look, he's not that good. This year he's no good,
Exactly.
So
That's what I'm saying. Like
yeah.
these goalies are, maybe top 10 goalies, but they're not the number one goalie. So
What
it's
you
almost like it's hampering the Canadians having Carey Price.
Well, that's what a lot of the talk was on the radio this week. That why don't they get rid of him and get a treasure chest of stuff for him, and then go out and sign someone like Ben Bishop, who's just as good, not just as good, but could be
good enough.
Good enough. Exactly, good enough.
I see. Like if you asked me today, would you trade Price for Taves? I would do it in a heartbeat. Canadians are never going to do it, but I would do it.
Yeah,
The Hawks aren't going to do it either, so it doesn't matter. It's never going to happen.
yeah.
But I would do that if I was the Canadians.
Well, I guess only time will tell, right?
Hi there, Skip and Josh will be right back. To get in touch with them, you can send them an email to skipandjoshshow@gmail.com. You can follow them on Twitter @skipandjosh, and you can visit their website at www.skipandjosh.com. And now, back to the show.
Do you want to talk about some of the other series that's going on, or have you been watching?
Yeah,
the other
I
stuff?
feel like I do have a couple things to say. So I feel like it's our responsibility now to talk about the Oilers and the Senators because they're the only two Canadian teams left in the playoffs.
And since the Senators have no fans, we better talk about them.
Do they have no fans, really?
Well, did you see the pictures of the game one? There was like 3,000 empty seats,
I didn't see that.
which
I
is
can't believe,
it's disgusting.
I can't believe it wasn't sold out. Are they charging exorbitant prices?
I
for
don't know.
tickets?
Round 2, game 1, there was like empty seats. You saw them on TV, and I was like, this is weird. And then, sure enough, the next day, there's all these articles about how there's empty seats, but the Senators organization didn't come out and really say why, or have any explanation other than that. Maybe the tickets are too expensive. Who knows?
Well, tickets are too expensive in this country for hockey. There's no question. And the thing is, every Canadian team thinks they can just put whatever price they want out there and fans will snap them up.
Well, the Canadians and the Leafs do that.
That's right. And did you hear what's going on? Speaking of ticket prices, I don't know if I mentioned this on the air, but did you hear what they're doing in Edmonton?
No.
So the games are sold out.
Right.
So they're selling these tickets to get into the arena. I think it's $60 or $80. All you do is you get in. You don't get a seat, and you don't even get to go like in the bowl. You're only outside on the concourse, like where the concession stands are.
Yeah, so they're charging you $60 to be able to buy $5 hot dogs.
Correct.
And $10
and then
beers.
Obviously, you're standing there with other fans, and you can hear the crowd. So you're at the game, and then you can say to your buddy, "Oh, I was at game 2, or I was at game 4, or whatever it was."
It's actually brilliant. It's brilliant because people are going to do it.
People are doing it.
I know, it's ridiculous.
They did it in the first round because they just want to be in the building.
Yeah, yeah.
But basically, you're paying to get into the building, and you're watching the game on a television. You're not watching the actual game.
What happens if the Oilers make it all the way to the finals? How much will those? No, what are we gonna call? What are those tickets called?
I don't even know what they're
non-standing
called.
room.
Well, you are standing.
Arena entry. I don't know what they're called.
The thing is,
they're gonna go
up. The question I had is, so I don't know how many people they're letting in, because if all these people are on the concourse during the game,
there
what
has
happens
to be
in the intermission when all the other people come out to buy food?
There has to be a limit because, I mean, obviously there's fire regulations and building regulations. There can only be a certain amount of, there's a maximum number of people that could be in the building.
Exactly, but I don't know what that number is.
Yeah, wow, that's pretty crazy. I didn't hear about that. Have you heard what the Oilers are doing have you seen O Canada in the home games at Edmonton?
I haven't actually.
They have the guy who's singing the anthem is in the crowd.
But is he an anthem singer? Or
Yeah, he's an anthem singer. It's almost like a choir. And
cool.
they're in a section.
That's very cool. I mean, listen, they're starved for playoff hockey. They haven't had a playoff game in Edmonton since I don't know when.
Yeah.
So, and the fact that all the fans come wearing orange, I find it so cool.
Yeah. No, I mean, playoff hockey is great. I mean, it's not just in Edmonton, it's in the American cities too, like even Washington, the fans are very passionate. Pittsburgh, it's huge, right? Obviously, in New York, we underestimate how much of a Rangers town it is. I have a lot of coworkers in New York, and I know there are some really rabid Ranger fans. So,
one thing, speaking of the fans, in Edmonton, you see a lot of orange, and I find in other cities, like you mentioned,
Washington is rock the red.
In Washington, you see a lot of red, but in Montreal, there are people who wear the Canadiens jersey, but not that many actually.
Yeah, it's they don't have like a coordinated color, to get everybody in the same thing.
Like you see some people wearing suits.
Yeah.
You see some people wearing jerseys.
Yeah.
But it's really like it's just all scattered. It's weird.
Yeah. So what do you think of the other series? I mean, Nashville won game 1. They're looking very strong, wouldn't you say?
Well, I mean, listen, they just swept the Hawks.
Yeah.
So
who
I thought they were the best team in the league. I was way wrong on that.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you just swept the Hawks and they're up 1-0 in their game against St. Louis right now in game 2.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're going to beat St. Louis for sure. I don't have no faith in Jake Allen, and I think Nashville's a deeper team.
Although Jake Allen played great against Minnesota.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, meanwhile, St. Louis was down 3-1 in that game, and everyone thought the game was over. They came back.
Yeah.
They came back. So don't count the Blues out. I mean, if you're asking me who I'm picking, I'm going to pick Nashville. But, I do think Nashville, they do have the better goaltender.
Yeah.
And I think their lineup top to bottom is just a little bit deeper.
Their defense is very deep,
Yeah.
So, and Edmonton, I mean, they won game 1. Anaheim is certainly a very strong team, but I mean, the Oilers are kind of like
they're kind of like the Leafs.
They're kind of like the Leafs.
Quick.
It's just that they're a year or two advanced, from where the Leafs are now.
Well, because Connor McDavid, this is his second year in the league, and Austin Matthews, it was only his first year in the league.
Connor McDavid is just head and shoulders above everybody. I mean, like,
I never thought he'd be this good. Everyone was talking about him when he was still in junior, but I never thought he would be this good, because how many times have I heard, "Oh, this guy's the next Gretzky," and it never happens.
And then you know what happened? He went to Team Canada, the World Juniors.
Yeah, I don't even remember
because he
I
was
watched the tournament, but I don't even remember him being that dominant.
because he was 16 his first year when he went. Like he made the team when he was so young, right?
Okay.
So and then he was never there after he was drafted. Like a lot of the really good players are. He went right to the NHL. So.
Right.
But yeah, I mean his speed
And
is just out of control.
Anaheim's got, they've got firepower, they've got Getzlaf, they've got Perry, they've got all these guys, but Anaheim, they're starting to get a little bit old.
Yeah, well, no, I mean think about it. Getzlaf, Perry, I mean these guys are near the end now, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean that you have like the old guard Anaheim versus the new guard Edmonton.
That being said, I think it could still go 7. Same thing with Nashville, St. Louis.
Oh yeah. I don't think there's going to be any sweeps. Watch, now that I said that, all 4 series will be swept, but
yeah. And then Ottawa pulled it off against the Rangers. I was a bit surprised because I feel like the Rangers are such a stronger team, but maybe Lundqvist is like he can sustain it. I don't know.
The Rangers are a stronger team defensively and in goal, I think, but Ottawa, they take more chances than the Canadians do.
Yeah, I know.
So they're going to have a little bit more offense, or maybe a lot more offense than the Canadians do.
But if the best player in the series is going to win the series, then it's Carlson, right?
For sure. And he's playing injured.
Yeah. Well, he says he's okay now, but I mean,
he's not okay. No one's okay at this point in the season.
Yeah. And then Caps Pens.
Caps Pens looks like it's going to be a great series. Game 1 was exciting, a lot of goals, which I like to see.
Yeah.
And obviously I love Sidney Crosby. I'm Canadian, and who doesn't love Sidney Crosby in this country? But there's a part of me that feels bad for Alex Ovechkin because he gets such a bad rap. The Capitals never advance far in the playoffs. They never go deep.
Yeah.
And all the blame gets put on the captain of the team, the best player on the team, which is going to happen on any team. So there's a part of me that wants to see Ovechkin do well in advance.
Yeah, there is a part of me that'd like to see that, but I don't know. I think everyone underestimates the power of Sidney Crosby. To be honest, he's that good.
Right, and it's not just him. He's got Evgeny Malkin.
He's got a great team.
He's got other guys on there to help him out.
Yeah, but you know what? Remember before the playoffs started, everybody thought, "Oh, Chris Letang's injured. They're dead." They didn't seem to care.
Well, they only played Columbus. This is going to be a tougher test for the Penguins than Columbus was.
Yeah, that's true.
I think.
Yeah.
So yes,
we should have our Pittsburgh correspondent come on to talk about the series.
We should actually. I spoke to him before the playoffs started.
Yeah.
And he said that he didn't think the Penguins were going to be able to repeat as Cup winners because of the Letang injury.
Right.
Now, he didn't say they were going to lose in the first round either, but
yeah, but as they go along, right?
Right. I mean, I know these two teams played each other last year, but there are 2 big differences in this series. One is Letang is not there for Pittsburgh. The second one is the Caps have Kevin Shattenkirk this year.
But he seems to be like almost like he's not making them better. It seems like he's a liability on the ice. A lot of goals are scored when he's on.
Well, I haven't noticed, but because I haven't watched enough of their games.
Yeah, I don't know. He doesn't seem like a playoff player to me. Maybe St. Louis knew something,
Okay, well, we'll see. Do we want to touch on the fact that PK Subban is still playing and Shea Weber is not? Is that
I don't
something
really
you want to talk about?
I don't really want to, but I don't.
Okay, all right, we don't have to.
I don't think it. In the Montreal media, because they have nothing to talk about anymore. They can't. For 5 days they're talking about the doom and gloom of the Habs, so now they have to find something else to talk about. So they basically picked apart, a little interview that Subban gave after the last game when he got 3 points.
Yeah.
And they picked it apart word for word, like literally examining every single word, every syllable of every word, and trying to infer, what he's saying. And basically all he's saying is he loves playing for Nashville and he hopes they win the Cup and he loves playing in the playoffs. And I love PK Subban. Who doesn't love the guy? No one said we didn't love him.
Any player on any team is going to say he loves playing on his team and he wants to win the Cup. Of course.
What is he supposed to say? No, I like playing for Montreal better after they're like, what do they think he's going to say? It's so ridiculous. Like, ugh.
Speaking of that,
I'm happy for him, and I want him to. I want him to win the Cup. I do because I love the guy here.
Didn't he say that if he wins the Cup, he's going to bring it back to the Children's Hospital?
100%, and I hope he does that.
So on RDS and on TVA Sports in Montreal, 2 days after the Canadiens got eliminated, they had this pretty much all day Canadiens coverage. They were in the locker room. They were interviewing players as they were cleaning out their lockers. And
Bergeron gave his press conference.
Exactly. So literally like the entire day was spent just on that, which,
Yeah.
and I'm embarrassed to say that I watched some of it.
Well, I told you I just watched the highlights because I didn't want to get all crazy about it.
So I watched some of it. And so, they interview Pacioretty, they interview Gallagher, they interview Price, they interview Markov, they interview whatever. And I don't know, these interviews are all dumb, but part of the reason they're dumb is because the people asking the questions aren't asking good questions. Some of the questions were like this. So they asked Pacioretty, so how is it playing with Shea Weber this season?
What is he supposed to say?
What is he going to say? Oh, I can't stand him. He sucks.
Yeah, of course he's going to say, Weber's great. And
Right.
then if he comes out and says Weber's the best defenseman I ever played with, then it's like, what is Subban going to say about it? Like,
Right.
it's all to stir up trouble.
But it wasn't just that. So they asked him the same thing. How is it playing with Carey Price? How is it playing with Andrei Markov? How is it with, I mean, what you're asking him about other guys on the team. They're his teammates. What's he going to say? He's not going to say a bad thing about him.
Yeah. Look.
Why don't you ask him a question like, what do the Canadians need to do to go further in the playoffs?
Well, and even then, what is he going to say? So the listeners know, because we've said it several times, we are both big fans of the Tony Kornheiser show.
Yes.
Right? Now, you know what Tony's number one rule is for having guests on his show.
Don't interview athletes.
He does not have athletes on. He'll have radio talk show hosts. He'll have authors, columnists, people that follow teams. Occasionally, he might have a coach or a GM, but he does not have athletes on his show because you know why? They don't say anything.
Yeah.
There is no point. So the point of having a microphone in front of all those guys in front of their locker rooms, there's no point other than to get all the eyeballs on the TV and all the eyeballs on the websites and try to, they're creating content. So that's what it is.
As soon as a player gets to the NHL or NFL or NBA or Major League Baseball, one of the things that player has to go through is media training.
Yeah, and they teach them how to not say anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like all these interviews are a waste of time.
Yeah. So I had, because we were talking about the day of the interviews and the press conference, there was something that came up today that I said, this is like a little mini what bugs me.
Things that bug me?
I cannot stand when the radio and talk show hosts call the press conference a presser. Okay.
I've heard that 100 times, a million times.
So like I'm listening to the radio and a caller calls in, and then the host is like, well, in Bergevin's presser, did you hear Bergevin's presser? I'm like, God, I hate that word. I just can't stand it. Why can't they just say press conference?
Because it's too long for them to say.
Actually, my feeling is they've taken this word that is a word that goes on like internal memos within a TV or radio station. It's like, hey, Josh, you get an email from your boss. Hey, Josh, are you going to go cover the presser? Mm-hmm, right? So It's like an internal word. And now they've put it out on the air and people...
And it's not a word that's in the dictionary, by the way. It's a made-up word.
I'm sure it is. I bet you it exists, but it's like nothing to do with press conferences.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a sandwich presser.
Exactly. It's the George Foreman. It's the grill. It's a panini press.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, I mean, that's what I wanted to get off my chest.
The Skip and Josh Sports Show is back.
Did you watch at all of the NFL draft?
I watched one pick in the draft. I happened to be flipping around.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly enough, I know that it's on TSN here in Canada and ESPN in the States.
Yeah.
And by the way, speaking of the draft, my favorite thing about the draft, I saw a commercial for the draft 2 days before that ESPN produced.
Yeah.
And it was like to the tune of, 'twas the night before Christmas, but it was 'twas the night before the draft.
Yeah.
The commercial was hilarious. That was the best part of the draft for me. But I was flipping around and the draft was actually on RDS in French as well, which I was surprised. So I watched one pick and I think it was the Oakland Raiders pick. It was like the 24th pick roughly in the draft.
Okay.
And I just wanted to see what was going on, and that was it. So I know nothing about the draft.
We had a little mini draft party here.
You did?
Well, my son had a couple of people over and, the hardcore football fans among his friends. And, everyone wants to see the pick of their team and everything. And we watched on TSN, but we get NFL Network in our house. So they have very good coverage because they have better people, actually, So like Mike Mayock and I don't know if you know Daniel Jeremiah. Like they have really good people on the NFL Network.
Okay.
So the draft is well done. I mean, it was cool because it's the first year that it was done all outside, right? The venue was completely outdoors.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and
So
it
what
was.
would they have done if it rained?
I don't know. Well, I mean, parts of the plus they made like they put up a stage and they put up like a they constructed like a place to do it, but it was open. Yeah, it could have rained. I don't know what.
So
would
was
happened.
it in a football stadium?
No, it was outside. And that's the other thing that I was about to say is it was in Philadelphia, and because I've been to Philadelphia so many times, I saw exactly where it was. So it's literally like they put up a stage like right in the middle of the city, like right in front of like you've seen the Rocky Steps, like
Yeah.
So basically, just in front of that, they put up a huge structure in front
That's
of
interesting.
that.
I'm surprised they didn't do it in the stadium.
And then that street that goes along, I don't know the names of the streets, it stretches far out, and it was just full of people. So it was really, really cool. But I mean, I think they landed on something good, the NFL, because it was like a big party. I guarantee you they sold way more beer, and they just they just created a party in the street to watch the draft, among football fans. So I think it was, from my eyes and from what I saw, it was a success. Now, in terms of the draft, I mean, look, I'm not a huge college football fan. Don't claim to know all these players, but some of the main names, I have been following, and specifically the quarterback. So like, I was not disappointed. I was actually there was kind of three quarterbacks that people were looking at. I don't know if you're following. So
Mitch Trubisky.
Mitch Trubisky was one of them.
Deshaun, whatever his name is.
Deshaun Watson, and then the other one was Patrick Mahomes the second. So you remember the pitcher Pat Mahomes? He pitched in the major leagues. This is his son.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it was interesting because last year everybody said, okay, Goff and Wentz 1 and 2. They were like set apart, those two. And most years it's pretty clear about the quarterbacks. But as you kind of, in the weeks leading up to the draft, you'd read one article where this insider is saying, oh, I really think that Mitchell Trubisky is the best quarterback in the draft. Then I'm a huge fan of this guy, Mike Lombardi. He's part of like the Bill Simmons network. Mm-hmm. He's an ex-GM, and he's worked in the NFL for his whole life. And he's run drafts for teams. He's really knows what he's talking about. He says that his opinion is that Deshaun Watson is the best quarterback. So, and I read another one where they're saying Patrick Mahomes has the biggest upside, and other people are like, no, Patrick Mahomes is all about his system. Like, there was a lot of like dissenting opinions about who is better. Mm-hmm. And look, I mean, that's why you have a draft, I guess. So right. The Bears actually traded up to get Trubisky. They swapped one pick. They moved up one pick from 3 to 2, and they gave the 49ers a whole bunch of draft picks just to do that one trade so they could take Trubisky.
You know what? That's good for the Niners.
It was great because I don't think the Niners would have taken him. I don't know, like, what went down there. So, like, if you read today, Bears fans are pissed. They're like, what the hell did we give all these draft picks just to get this guy?
Yeah.
Right? We could have probably got him third anyways. And
I don't need to remind you that Tom Brady was picked in the 6th round, and Russell Wilson was taken in the 3rd round.
Yes, of course.
And the draft in every sport is really a crapshoot.
Yeah. So what ended up happening is Deshaun Watson ended up falling all the way to 12th. And I think he was probably thrilled at where he was picked because he got picked by the Houston Texans.
Oh, so he's on a decent team.
Like, the Houston Texans are like a ready-made team full of great talented players except for quarterback.
Yeah, that's the only
right?
thing they're missing.
So this guy hopefully will step in from day one and be ready to excel, right? And he has DeAndre Hopkins, who's like a number 1 receiver ready to throw to. Like, so I'm really excited because I love Deshaun Watson. He was electric in college. I don't know if you know his whole story. They went to the national championship game 2 years in a row, both times against Alabama. They won the second year. So he's just a great story. And I was happy to see him go to like the situation where I really believe he wanted to go because you could see how thrilled he was. So that's my take on the draft. Otherwise, it's a roll the dice and, take your picks. But one thing about the NFL draft, that's really what makes the NFL draft so important is that practically all these guys are going to start on their team on day one of the season. Other than the quarterbacks who might sit on the bench for a year or two, but offensive line, defensive line, corners, linebackers, receivers, you picked in the first round, bam, you're expected to go replace a veteran and start.
And also, there's lots of injuries in football, so
tons.
guys who might not be number one on the depth chart on day one end up playing a lot.
Yeah. So
by the end of the season.
Some notable picks is T.J. Watt, brother of J.J. Watt. I guess in the Watt family, everybody is named with initials.
Okay.
He was picked by the Steelers. So
what position does he play?
He's a linebacker. He's a defensive player, sort of like his brother.
Okay.
And there were some great names. Love the names.
Tell me some.
Taco Charlton.
Oh, that is a good name.
Picked by the Cowboys. Tre'Davious White. If I spell it for you, you'd laugh. There's an apostrophe.
Is there an apostrophe in there?
Yes, there's an apostrophe in there.
Okay.
And, Jabril Peppers, you've heard of, right? And
of course, yes.
Yeah, so that I just thought it was great. I mean, Taco. I mean, that's just the ultimate name, right?
You got Taco and Peppers.
I didn't know when they kept saying, "Oh, Taco Charlton's still on the board. The Cowboys are going to pick him." I'm like, okay, is that like his real name? Is that on his birth certificate, or is that a nickname that became his real name? I was very curious about the name situation. So,
yeah, some names. This is going off topic completely, but like Coco Crisp. Coco's not his real first name.
Well, I don't know. I should hope not. But I guess, that became his name, right? That's what we know him as.
Check out the Skip and Josh Sports Show on Twitter. You know that little app with the little blue Tweety bird? Yeah, you can follow them there at Skip and Josh.
Do you have a What Bugs Me?
I do, actually. Thank you for reminding me.
I gave you my little presser thing, but that was just like,
Well, mine's not a huge one.
That was an appetizer.
Mine's not a huge one either, but when we first started doing this, 7 months ago,
yeah,
I actually made a list of all the things that bug me. And I've been going down the list and slowly using all of them.
You've been adding to the list as you've been
going? I've had to add to the list, of course.
Okay.
I've had to add to the list. Otherwise, I would have ran out, months ago.
Right.
But there's one that I put on the list. I think I put it on even day one. And I was just waiting for a good time to use it.
I can't wait to hear this.
You're kidding me? Boy, are you bugging me, man. I'm gonna nail. Ooh, I'm getting bugged now. Whoa, man.
So finally, I can use it this week because the first round of the playoffs ended on Sunday in the NHL.
Right.
Every team was done playing on Sunday. In fact,
God.
some teams were even done playing 2 or 3 days prior to that.
I know where this is heading.
And so when does round 2 start? Not on Monday, not on Tuesday. It starts on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Why would it start on Wednesday? The teams that were still left in the playoffs, the 8 teams that were still left, had they gone to game 6 or 7, they would have played on Monday and Tuesday. So clearly they were ready to play.
Right.
So why not start round 2?
Don't know. This is the type of thing that you'll never know.
And
you'll
this
never
is why
find you'll never find the answer.
Soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway,
you've talked about that with me before.
Of course,
I've heard that.
I don't think I've talked about it on our show, though.
No. But in the course of our lifetime, I've heard you mention this several times.
Yeah.
And there's no rhyme or reason. It's just that's the schedule.
Yeah, I'm sure TV has a lot to do with it. They dictate everything.
Yeah, sure.
But Anaheim won their series on Thursday.
Yeah.
And Edmonton, I think, won their series. Was it Friday?
Yeah.
So. They didn't have to wait till Wednesday to start.
Yeah, well, with NBC more invested now, I think the TV is getting dictated more. The schedule's getting dictated more than ever by TV, right?
For sure, but there's games every day.
Yeah.
So even if they would have started on Monday, they still would have had games on NBC.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So anyway,
what do you think about all the ESPN layoffs?
What are you talking about? I didn't even hear about this.
Where have you been, man?
ESPN?
ESPN laid off 100 on-air personalities.
Really?
They're mostly local.
First of all, they have 100 on-air personalities?
They have 1,000.
They have 1,000?
Because there's counting every ESPN radio station in every city and every ESPN TV station in every city, right? So
okay.
There's local ESPNs in 50 different cities, right? That have people working for them.
Okay,
right?
But of these 100 layoffs, do I know any of them? Have I heard any of these names?
Yeah. Jason Stark.
Oh, okay, I know him.
And Ed Werder.
I know him.
Those were the Pierre LeBrun.
Oh, really? Well, he's got another job.
I know, he has another gig. So I think most of them.
So why'd they do this?
Well, ESPN is basically hemorrhaging money, right? They are in trouble.
Really?
Yeah, they've been losing. I'd have to look up the stats. So I don't want to throw out a number because I don't know it off the top of my head. But they're losing in the tens of thousands of subscribers every single month.
Really?
Like every month, the
Is
number
that because people are going to Fox Sports instead, or
it's
just
cable
people don't care about
subscribers,
sports?
right? Because you have to subscribe through your cable channel, and people just don't want to do it because I think they feel they can get stuff online. And ESPN sort of came very late to the party in terms of streaming sports and streaming their channel. What they're doing is really short-sighted, but it's like what every corporation does. They're losing money, so they lay off people because that's the only thing they can do. Because right now, what ESPN has all their money tied up in is over $1 billion. That number I do know. I think it's like $1.2 billion in broadcast rights. So, for instance, the rights to the NFL, the rights to the SEC network, college football, the rights to NBA, and like all the stuff that they show, all the live events that they show, they paid over $1 billion for those rights. And they're not making it back in advertising like they used to because they don't have the same amount of subscribers.
Yeah, a similar thing might happen here in Canada because Rogers overpaid grossly for the NHL rights.
That's the first thing that I thought of about that.
So I mean, they just wanted to get hockey. They were going to do whatever it took to get hockey, and they overpaid by billions of dollars to get it, just so that they could outbid TSN.
Yeah. But we'll see where they are in 5 years from now, right?
Right. And I mean, there's still like another 8 years left on this deal.
Yeah. So look, it's weird times in the broadcasting. So I mean, that as soon as I heard about, I mean, I knew these layoffs were coming because I've sort of been following it, the ESPN layoffs. I knew it was coming, and I don't think it was just that much a surprise to the people who got laid off. I think, they knew something was coming, but it's shows like ours that fill the void, right? It's shows like ours that let anybody kind of make their own show and find their own niche of listeners, right? You don't need to listen to ESPN this or ESPN that or Rogers, whatever. You have our show, right? So we talk about exactly what you want to hear, hopefully.
Right. Absolutely.
Hopefully, yeah. So great chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks for that news. I just Googled it now while you were talking, and so I'm going to read
it. It just goes to show, right? I mean, like we've said, this is not our full-time job. And we chat once a week about what's on our mind.
But I'm surprised I didn't hear about this.
I should have told you.
Well, you would think I would have just heard about it.
Yeah. So just remember that if you are listening and not subscribed to our podcast, click subscribe on iTunes, which is called Apple Podcasts now, or Stitcher or Google Play. And if you are on Apple Podcasts /iTunes, give us a review and leave us a comment. And you can always reach us at our email address, skipandjoshshow@gmail.com. Just go to our website and you'll see skipandjosh.com, and you can see all the links to how to subscribe and all the ways to contact us. That's great. I want to give a shout out to Lenny from Pierrefonds, our newest fan.
That's great. Hey, Lenny.
All right. I'll talk to you next week.
Cool.
All right.
The Skip and Josh Sports Show is over now. Don't worry, there'll be another episode soon.